This is what he tweeted out. Here it is on the screen. There's Austrian economics and there's junk economics. So the only good economics is the Austrian school of economics. If you're not an extreme libertarian like Ludwig von Mises, like Friedrich von Hayek, anything you have to say about economics is junk. There are only two kinds of economists in his view: those who practice this fringe, extreme, radical libertarian economics, and those who don't. And those of us who don't are junk economics, and those of us who practice this radical, fringe, extreme economics known as the Austrian school, those of us who think that Milton Friedman was not enough of a radical free marketeer, those of us who want to privatize absolutely everything, who think it's great that we have schools for profit right now, think it's great that we have private military contractors and prisons for profit because it's always better if the government's not involved. But this libertarian, radical free market economics, this is the only economics that's not junk economics. Now, I saw this, and as someone who takes economics very seriously, I had to respond. And immediately I got hundreds of libertarians dogpiling me and calling me all kinds of nasty names and calling for my death. And we'll get to that later. And insisting that I just didn't know anything about Austrian school economics. I just clearly just don't know anything about it. I mean, that could be the only way I could possibly say this. I don't know anything about it. So we're just going to quickly, it's not really that hard to do. We're going to debunk Austrian school economics. We're going to show some actual quotes from the Austrian school economists, the founding fathers of Austrian economics, and we're going to just show them for what they are. We're just going to quickly show what the Austrian school economics is, their very words. We're going to debunk them. Point by point. Point by point, we are going to debunk Austrian economics. Here's a good quote. This is a great one. See this? The idea that humankind can shape the world according to wish is what I call fatal conceit. The idea that human beings can try to change the world, can try to build things, can try to construct things, can take responsibility for history is fatal conceit. That's Friedrich von Hayek. Now, I would argue that it is our ability to make our environment serve us that defines our humanity. Human beings are the tool-making creatures. I will quote Frederick Engels as saying that all other species simply interact with their environment, but humanity is the only species that forces the environment to serve him, and that the ability that we can shape the world according to our wishes is the essence of our humanity. Our ability to reinvent our relationship with our environment, our ability to move to higher fuel and energy sources and higher modes of production, that defines the very essence of what it means to be a human. But Hayek says no. The idea that any human being, that humanity as a group can shape the world according to our wishes is just a fatal conceit. So that's the foundations of our disagreement. I believe that the human race can continue to reach a higher plane, to increase living standards, to increase its population, to increase its life expectancy, to invent new relationships with nature, to invent new technologies and new breakthroughs. I believe in human progress. Friedrich von Hayek says the notion that human beings can try to change their environment he argues, he says, is fatal conceit. Now, obviously, my disagreement isn't simply on that issue. This is a pretty important. It's a pretty important disagreement. Pretty important disagreement. So that's the foundation. That's Friedrich von Hayek. But there's plenty of other great quotations from the founding fathers of Austrian economics. Here's another one. All right. Socialism is an alternative to capitalism, as potassium cyanide is an alternative to water. All right? Water that supplies life, and cyanide that kills you. There you go. That is his analysis. Oh, but there's more. There's more. Here's a good one. The welfare state is merely a method for transforming the market economy step by step into socialism. Has that happened, right? All these welfare states in Europe, it was just step by step. They all became communist countries. They all became the Soviet Union. They all became Marxist-Leninist governments, step by step. First, they had free healthcare. First, they had public education. First, they had food stamps for hungry children, and then they became communist dictatorships. Did that happen? Is that what happened? Right? That it starts with a welfare state, and it leads to full socialist societies. Is that really, really true? Has that ever happened anywhere? Have we ever anywhere in the world seen a welfare state that was just step by step turning into communism? Has that ever happened anywhere? Anywhere? But no, I mean, that's Mises. He says that this is true. There you go. Right? Something, it's never happened anywhere, but the welfare state is not a method of holding off revolution. It's not a method of trying to stabilize society to prevent revolution. No, 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 no. The welfare state is just step by step into communism. There you go. One day you got free healthcare. One day the government provides free college. Next thing you know, you got Stalinism. That's some of the dumbest Fox News idiocy I've ever heard, but it's the Austrian school. It's a core, essential part of their belief. So much that they not only believe it, not only did Ludwig von Mises say it, but he made a meme of it. I mean, this is an essential part of their belief, right? That the welfare state just naturally turns into communism. Never has it ever happened anywhere in the world that way, but that's what they believe. But I'm going to get to the most important thing, the essence of our disagreement, because this is what I want to talk to folks about tonight. Here we go. A society that chooses between capitalism and socialism does not choose between two social systems. It chooses between social cooperation and the disintegration of society. Socialism leads to the disintegration of society. That is an essential part of their beliefs. Wherever you have socialism, society disintegrates. That is an essential part of the Austrian school. If the Austrian school is correct, everywhere that has ever had socialism must disintegrate. That's what they believe. Just like it's the difference between capitalism and socialism is cyanide or water. What happens whenever a society has socialism? It socially disintegrates. So let's see if that has happened. I guess every society that's ever had a Marxist communist government has just totally disintegrated. This is a clip from a PBS documentary about what happened in the Soviet Union when they began building with 5-year plans.
Engineers and technicians for the new society, training was expanded. and the communists said women should have equality with men, with equal pay. Ella Shishtia was one of a new generation of women.
Когда Ленин сказал, стране нужна электрификация, а коммунизм это советская...
When Lenin said that communism is Soviet power plus electrification, I decided that I should become an electrical engineer, that was my holy duty. And I didn't want to just draw up plans, I wanted to build an electric power station. That was my mission, and I achieved it. The revolution gave me the right to feel equal to any man. It gave me the right to work, to study what I wanted to study.
Fyodorova was held up as an example to others.
We live so well. Our hearts are so joyful. In no other country are there such happy young people as us. We're the happiest young people. And on behalf of all young people, I want to thank our party and our dear comrade Stalin for this joy that we have. Stalin set a task. Build this or build that. And thanks to the fact that people trusted him, and this enthusiasm of young people, it was possible. Remember, this was a country where people were illiterate, lived in virtual darkness, wore birch bark shoes. Even now, I think it's like something out of a fairy tale. How was it possible, at one of the most difficult times, to raise these great construction sites? It was only possible through the unity of the people and the love of the people for their idol. Because for us, Stalin was an idol.
Wow, you know, a whole country became an industrial superpower, built the biggest steel industry in the entire world, built a modern oil industry, electrified the entire country, wiped out illiteracy, educated people, made women industrial engineers, was so strong it could withstand a Nazi invasion, eventually invented space travel. But the Austrian school says whenever you have socialism, you get the total disintegration of society. The Soviet Union rapidly industrialized, raised millions of people out of poverty, but the Austrian school says whenever you have socialism, you get the total disintegration of society. So everything you saw there, a whole country rapidly industrializing, it couldn't have happened because the Austrian school says that, if you have socialism, you just get the disintegration of society.
Teams of young activists were sent to the country.
We went from house to house in search of illiterate people. We made a note of their names. We then found suitable rooms to hold classes in.
Learning to write would open new doors for those trapped at the bottom of society. One woman who couldn't attend classes because of her child at home was helped by Anastasia Denisova.
Я сказала, что вот тебе учебник, вот будешь заниматься, я буду к тебе приходить. I said, here's a textbook for you. I'll come to you so you can learn to read at home. Она держит, одной рукой держит. I remember vividly that when the baby cried, she carried on writing with one hand while she rocked him with the other. She was so keen to study. I'll always remember her striving for knowledge and enlightenment. It was immense.
For Valentina Mikova and Mikhail Arkhipov, these were the most fulfilling days of their lives.
На строительстве домен был один экскаватор.
There was one excavator at the blast furnace building site, and it wasn't always reliable. So we dug all the foundations by hand.
Понимаете, The
trench would be teeming with people. One takes the earth, throws it to the level above. The second person throws it to the third to the fourth, up to 5 or 6 levels. That was how we got the earth out of the trench. Then it was taken away in wheelbarrows.
All right. But apparently that never happened, right? A whole country didn't rapidly industrialize and wipe out illiteracy and become a modern industrial superpower and invent space travel and defeat the Nazis. No. None of that happened. Why? Well, the Austrian school says that socialism leads to the disintegration of society. So all that ever happened in the USSR was that they just disintegrated as a society. If Austrian school economics is correct, the USSR should have just completely disintegrated. They shouldn't have defeated the Nazis. They shouldn't have invented space travel. They shouldn't have, industrialized rapidly. They shouldn't have built the world's biggest power plants. They shouldn't have built modern universities. None of that ever happened because Austrian economics says that all that happens when you have socialism is society disintegrates. But I got more pictures to show you. This is great. This is awesome. This is just awesome. Awesome stuff. I want to show you some other pictures here, right? So again, Austrian economics maintains that if you have socialism, all that happens, if you have a communist or socialist government that controls the means of production, all that happens is society disintegrates. Well, this is China. This is Beijing in 1940. That's what China looked like in 1940. That's the main street in Beijing in 1940. Now, we know that communists came to power in 1949, right? So you would assume that, it looked like that it must have just completely gone to hell. Because every time you have socialism, it just naturally leads to society disintegrating. What happened? Let's take a look at what China looked like. What did this same area, Beijing, look like in 1970? Let's take a look. Now, what did Beijing look like in 1970? 1970, what did Beijing look like? Wow. They just totally disintegrated, right? When communists come to power, you just totally disintegrate. That very same area looks like, I guess, it just totally disintegrated, right? Because that's what happens every time you have communism. Society just totally disintegrates. So now what does Beijing, the capital of China, look like today, right? It must have even further disintegrated because every time you have socialism, society just totally disintegrates, right? Right? Because that's what Austrian economics believes. Well, let's see what happens, right? Because this is fact, right? Because this is what the Austrian economics school believes, right? Every time you have socialism, society totally disintegrates. Wow. There you go. It's even further disintegrated. Look at that. That's what the Beijing skyline looks like right now. Right? Wow. I showed you what it looked like in 1940. I showed you what it looked like in 1970 after the communists had been in power for 30 years. Now here it is in 2019. Wow, it's just totally fallen apart. Right? China hasn't become like the second largest economy in the world. China hasn't wiped out extreme poverty and raised 800 million people from poverty. China doesn't have the biggest power plants and the biggest steel manufacturing industry in the world. They don't have the biggest telecommunications manufacturer in the world isn't a state-controlled mega corporation called Huawei. Oh, no, none of that has ever happened. The only way you can believe in Ludwig von Mises, the only way you can believe in Austrian economics, you have to believe, it is a central belief, I just showed you on the screen, that anytime you have a socialist government, it leads to the disintegration of society. That is so obviously not true. Russia, the Soviet Union, under the leadership of the communists, became a superpower that was so powerful it could defeat the Nazis, it could invent space travel. I just showed you the great industrialization. Oh, no, couldn't have happened. Right? China, under the leadership of the Communist Party, has had a massive expansion of living. No, couldn't have happened. Let's talk about Libya. Until 2011, Libya had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. Libya, under the leadership of Gaddafi, of the Islamic Socialist Movement, the Green Book, under the leadership of Gaddafi, Libya had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. And they built the Great Man-Made River, which was the world's largest irrigation system. And now Libya has been destroyed by NATO bombs. It's been brought back into the free market by the bombs of NATO. But apparently all that economic construction in Libya never happened. Compare the way Cubans live. Compare the living conditions of Cubans who have 100% employment, no unemployment, universal housing, universal literacy, a great medical system. Compare the conditions of Cubans with Haitians under the free market, with Guatemalans, with Hondurans. You can see evidence of the free market all over South and Central America. But no. All that's happened in Cuba since 1959 is the total disintegration of society. I have just completely debunked Austrian school economics. Austrian economics says that all that ever happens in socialism is the total disintegration of society. That's all that ever happens. It is a central belief of the Austrian school that socialism just leads to the total disintegration of society. And that is such complete bullshit. That is such complete bullshit. I mean, it's just so obviously bullshit. I don't know where to begin. That's all it takes to debunk Austrian school economics. That is all that it takes to debunk Austrian school economics. It is a central part of their belief that anytime you try to have socialism, society just deteriorates. Society just disintegrates, right? A society that chooses between capitalism and socialism does not choose between two social systems. It chooses between social cooperation and the disintegration of society. Well, USSR became a superpower. China became a superpower. Cuba has higher living standards than most of the Caribbean countries and most of Latin America. Many examples, Libya and the achievements of Gaddafi that had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. If you have any thoughts of ever listening to anything that the Austrian School of Economics has to say, I have just completely debunked it. A central part of their belief is that anywhere you have socialism, anywhere in the world that you have socialism, it just leads to society disintegrating. And I've just proven to you with many examples that that is not true. So that is a thorough debunking of Austrian economics. And I got more I want to say.